So since the introduction of the Terminally Ill Adults Bill, we've seen an increase in requests for advice from mental health providers, and it's clear that the bill is having an impact before it's even been enacted. What are the kind of requests for advice that we're receiving?
I'd say the most common one that we are receiving from mental health providers and express concerns, both inpatient and in the community, is they've seen a real uptick in patients coming to them, telling them and informing them of their wish to travel abroad to seek assistance to end their own lives.
Okay, and what are the considerations when that's happening?
The main one, if we're looking at it from an inpatient perspective, so if a patient is detained under the Mental Health Act and they have a responsible clinician in place, as part of their recovery and treatment under the Mental Health Act, they are able to have Section 17 leave. And a responsible clinician grants Section 17 leave to that patient. Our advice centres around now is what is the information expressed in that wish, and is that going to impact in the granting of that leave for the patient? Is it a case where the risk is so significant that the patient shouldn't be able to go on Section 17 leave? And what other elements should be taken into account? So, for example, as part of Section 17 leave, there can be conditions that are in place. So the responsible clinician could consider, well, we'll still grant the leave, but there's going to have to be a certain element of conditions, potentially where a person is going, who they're with, where they're residing. And so it's really that level of consideration that has to be taken into account. There's also the views of family to consider. And in addition, if a patient is being granted leave to be accompanied by family members or in the custody of friends, they have to be made aware that there are offences that they would be committing if they were to assist the patient in carrying out their wishes in travelling abroad.
Okay, so it's really complex and it's going to be dependent on each individual patient.
Yeah, absolutely. In some cases, you could say it's a straightforward answer, but realistically, that has to be a high level of consideration as Section 17 leave is utilised as part of a patient's recovery. There's a real balance with that. In the same vein as a lot of patients that we see who threaten suicidal ideation or suicidal intentions, and the same considerations have to be taken into account. It's just the fact we're seeing a bigger uptick of this now with the prevalence of the assisted dying bill and the developments of it as we see in Parliament at the moment.
Yes, absolutely. It's a really difficult balancing exercise then. What do you see as being the immediate impact when the bill comes into force?
So of course at the moment it's difficult to say. But as things stand, it's very clear that of what the responsible clinicians and any others involved with patients within this sector have to do, what is legal and what is illegal. If the bill is enacted, of course, then I can see that we'll see an uptick in these requests, and it's really going to be then about how they are dealt with. And there's two automatic issues that spring from that. Firstly, as we know, as part of the bill, there has to be a terminal diagnosis. So 6 months left to live. Further issues with that are, well, there are certain mental health disorders, illnesses that can give a terminal diagnosis, such as anorexia or dementia. So whether they will qualify under the bill or the Act, as it will be. The second element is then an individual must have the mental capacity to make this decision, to make this application to end their own life. Now, the issues that we can really foresee with this is the bill as it's drafted currently sets out that there has to be 2 assessments by doctors that include mental capacity assessments. So what we can easily foresee is that there could be a patient who has a mental disorder, a mental illness, who also then has a physical illness that gives them 6 months to live. the assessment of capacity for that patient is likely to then be very complex. We've also know, as part of the current iteration of the wording of the bill, that psychiatrists or other health professionals who are involved with the person making the application can be consulted as part of that assessment process. So what is that involvement going to look like? We don't know at the moment. And further, we can envisage that, say, if one doctor assesses an individual as having the capacity and therefore satisfying the criteria or one element of the criteria for the application, what happens if the other doctor says that they lack capacity? Does it then go to the Court of Protection for determination? Because the bill is expressed in its wording that capacity, as is within the Mental Capacity Act, is the definition that it is utilised. So we're going to see Court of Protection judges facing these applications for determination of capacity, and a whole new or a whole nother strand of jurisprudence specifically around this within the Court of Protection.
It's really complex and there's still so much to be worked out, but it's really helpful to have a chat about some of the issues that might come up. So thank you.
Thank you.